Hey YouTube, what is going on? Brandon here with Brandon's Garage. Today I'm going to be sharing a project with you that I ended up doing over the last 2 to 3 months. And that is the project of removing an old play area that was about 25 to 40 feet. And it was basically in an area that was outlined with wood and where there was rubber mulch, and you'll see that later on in the video. It's this green, really heavy rubber mulch that was laid down. And after removing all of that, I'll put up some pictures, but after removing all of that, I was then able to have access to the soil. You'll see that process of me tilling that soil, which was really compacted down because of all the weight of the mulch and just the usage over the years. I was able to till that area, and then you'll see me lay down some new soil specifically for growing grass. And I'll explain a little bit more about why I did certain things and how I did certain things in the rest of the video. So hopefully this video ends up helping you if you're doing a similar project. I'm not an expert at all. This is simply a DIY that I did. This job was quoted to me at about $4,000 to $5,000. Completely done, from the removal of the play area to the installing of the grass. From the beginning to the end, that whole process would have been about $4,000 to $5,000. And my total cost, not including my time but just material, was at about $1,000. So I ended up saving big by doing it myself. And that's the kind of savings that you can have if you do a project like this on your own. Even if you had half of that savings, that would be very much worth it. So as this is a new channel, your support is greatly appreciated. You liking the video, subscribing to the channel, commenting down below whether you have a question or if you're just saying thank you for the video, really does mean a lot, and it does help this new up and coming channel. Now I will say that there are some affiliate links that I will put in the description below. Those are for products that I ended up using in this video to complete this project, or that just made things easier, or something that I just use in general that helped me with this project. So all of those products that I end up mentioning in this video will be linked in the description below. Alright, that's really all I have for now. Let's get right into the rest of the video. Alright, I'm really excited to share this project with you guys. It did take me quite a bit of time to get it to this point where you're even seeing it right now, because there were some roots also that I needed to take out before I laid down everything else, so that I had a good foundation. And this is the rubber mulch, basically, that I bagged up most of it, but then there's this pile that was left over because I was rushing towards the end to get the project done. And you can see a bunch of weeds and everything. I tried to weed out as much as possible over a week or two. Little by little, I kind of just got this area ready to get it to the point where I could till it and then work with it. So this soil is really hard, and so this tilling process did take me a little while because I was breaking up that hard soil. Because this wasn't the only soil I was gonna have to grow my grass, I didn't spend a whole lot of time on it, as much as maybe I would have if this was the soil I had to work with alone. But this did loosen things up and make things a lot easier to be able to grow. So whatever roots or weeds you see popping out of the soil at this point, I kind of just said, I'm going to work on it later and pull them up little by little when I have more time. Now, if you notice here, right in the center of the screen, there's this, it's kind of odd, there's some piled in dirt. This was a hole that had formed, I guess, at the bottom of this, and that did throw me off a little bit with the project, but all I did was ended up, pouring in some extra soil in there as well, and it ended up evening out pretty good. This wasn't perfectly even, and there are still a lot of imperfections, but I wasn't really going for perfection here. I had spent quite a bit of time. The contractors that I had hired to lay down some sod didn't end up showing up, and so I ended up canceling and doing it myself for less money, with a little bit more work. So this is the soil that I ended up buying. This was the bulk of the cost, was this soil, but honestly, it is the best decision I made to get this new soil laid down, and that really did help produce a lot of growth. You'll see that later in the video. It was quite a bit of work to lay this down, but I threw in a few extra hours of work, and I just said, in the long term, this is going to be worth it. The one thing that I would caution is When you're laying down a soil like this and you water it, you water this area a lot, it can get pretty muddy, and your shoes, your sandals, whatever you're using to walk around in this area when you're trying to irrigate, it can get, pretty messy in there pretty quick. But once I laid down this pile of soil in one area, I would spread it out, and it got, a decent amount, but at first I was a little bit short with the soil, so that larger amount of bags that you saw a minute ago, that was my second purchase. I started with about 10 bags, and so I ended up getting another 30. So in total, I had about between 35 to 40 roughly. I think that's roughly where I was. So the tiller I ended up renting from Home Depot, and the soil I also got from Home Depot. So this is a Home Depot project. It's right around the corner from my house, so that's why I ended up using it. However, I'm sure you can find similar products at Lowe's or Menards if that's where you choose to shop. So all I'm trying to do here is get a thin layer of this soil, and I'm trying to get it to go as far as possible. I ended up using all of the bags and having exactly the amount. I measured out how much I needed. This cart was really helpful, and it really does help me with all my projects that I do at home through this project, and also when I'm doing anything else. It just makes things so much easier. I'll leave a link in the description below if you wanted to get yourself one. Wheelbarrow is great too, but I personally like using this cart. Once I laid down all the soil, lastly, I took one bag and just made sure wherever I needed to fill in got filled. The edges and some other parts that didn't really get too much soil, I ended up just filling in those areas because I really wanted this whole area to have enough soil so that growth was able to happen quickly. The last thing I would have wanted is to put all this time and effort into this and then for the grass not to grow. So the grass seed that I used, I also got from Home Depot. This is a sun and shade mix. I've used this in my yard before, and it's worked really well with overseeding or growing in some smaller areas that really weren't a big project like this. So I got 3 of these bags, but I only really needed 2. Even the second one was just for overseeding, and the first bag really did a great job getting 2 layers down. I really wanted to get a lot of seed in this soil because I wanted to see a lot of growth quickly. That was just me personally. You may want to do something different, but I got my cart. This cart I will leave a link for in the description below as well. But I got this first layer down. That was really important to get plenty of seed down the first time. And then I was going to do a second layer, and that second layer would just be on the top, and this first layer I end up raking in. So the day that I chose to do this project, it was very hot here in Illinois. It was about 90 to 95 degrees. There wasn't much rain in the forecast. Right now, as I'm doing this voiceover, there is a lot of rain, plenty of rain, and so that ended up turning out good. But this initial part, I really was going to need a lot of water. Even though I did put down a lot of seed, that seed needs to germinate, and for it to germinate, it needs to stay wet. And I was able to do that with various products. So this is my first home, and this is my first year living here and working on this yard. So there's a lot of products that I'm missing. So I'm going to share with you some of the products that I ended up using on this project, and hopefully me sharing this with you is helpful. There will be links for all of the products I ended up showing you or talking about here in the video. So this first one is this hose that expands when there's water pressure. It's about 100 feet. I needed a longer one to be able to reach out into that part of my yard. And I ended up getting also a splitter so that I could use 2 hoses at the same time. Another really helpful product was a wireless irrigation timer. And what was great about this product was I could use it with an app on my smartphone. And anytime I needed to water while I was away or there wasn't much rain, I was able to control with that. This is the splitter I ended up getting. This was absolutely necessary for me because I needed to be able to have 2 hoses connected so that I had different options to do different things. I also have a garden off to the side and I needed that to be watered as well. So I ended up using over the course of this project 2 different oscillating sprinklers. The one you see there off to the side, but I also purchased one off of Amazon as well. That came later on, about 2 or 3 days later. So that one was a more modern one, but it was about as good as the one that I have here in the video. So the watering part of this project is very important. Without the water, it is very, very difficult for this seed to grow. So I aimed to water for about 2 weeks, about 3 times a day, because I was being very aggressive about this seed growing. And then luckily after those 2 weeks, there was plenty of rain up until today when I'm doing this voiceover. And so that has really helped with the growth, and you will see that later on in the video. So I ended up laying down this oscillating sprinkler, this first one, and then I kind of changed things up, multiple times. You'll even see here that I ended up adjusting a lot to make sure that the majority of this area was getting plenty of water. Now, I didn't end up rolling in the soil and the seed simply because I didn't have enough time. I did have the rental actually scheduled for one of the days, but I ended up missing because I got busy. But that is recommended, and the majority of everything that I did here, I got my guidance from some pretty predominant lawn care YouTube channels, and they were very helpful in all the different information. But I kind of did it my own way and, tweaked a few things. And so this is just my project, and I'm showing you how I did mine. Hopefully this ends up helping you out. All right, so all the installation work is now complete. Now it's just the watering, and luckily that became automated for me, so I didn't really have to put in that much time and effort. This is day 5 now, what we're seeing, and day 5 is where I really started to see a little bit of growth, and this is where I started to have hope and see that growth was actually happening on day 5. So when I ended up starting out this project and laying down the seed, it was one of the hottest days in Illinois. It was about 90 to 95 degrees. And so that really got me worried. It's also June. There was no rain in the forecast. But even with those conditions, I started to see growth. So around the same time I did the seed for the grass, I ended up planting a bunch of seed in my garden. One of the costs that I didn't really take into account with this project was the actual cost of the water, the extra water that I was going to put in this area. But for the past week, we've had tons of rain, so that has really helped. Day 8 is really where it started to come in and looking great. This is Sugar. She was a trooper through this whole project. All right, so day 12 is the last update that I put in this video. I did not expect this much growth over just 12 days from laying down that seed. I thought it would be at least a month or over a month for it to get to this point where it looks almost level with the rest of my grass. I just cut it today and it looks great, but it looks pretty much the same as it does in this video. So that soil, the seed, everything that I did ended up working out and turning out better than I expected. I am very happy with these results. As I said, I was able to do a cut today. Everything is nice and even, and looking from different angles, you can really tell it is really filled in, and that's because of all of the extra seed and the 2-3 layers and the overseeding, along with a ton of water that I ended up putting into this. And so that's why there's such quick growth. Also, the soil played a very big role in this. The weather didn't help me much, but hopefully that encourages you if you're doing a project like this, on an off season, wherever you might be. This is Illinois in June, which is not the optimal time to grow, but yet I was able to get some really good results. From this angle, it looks amazing with a nice cut. This really all just blends in now. You can't tell that this is new grass. It has a slightly lighter color. However, that doesn't bother me at all. It really does, for the most part, blend in with the rest of the grass. And as it matures, it is going to blend in even more. This little area here was struggling a bit, so I ended up throwing down some more seed, watering, and now it is doing just fine. Alright you guys, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully this video ended up helping you out. Again, make sure to support the channel, like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment below if you have questions or any other comments. And don't forget the affiliate links that are in the description below. That's really all I have for today. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time.